Yep, that's me. You're probably wondering how I got here. Hello, and welcome back to the Bird channel, where we talk about stories in movies, book shows, and games, and I stream on twitch.tv/Jinsey. If you followed me around for long enough, then by now you probably know I'm a big fan of the Souls series. I like the challenge they present, but I also very much enjoy the world they've built and the stories they tell. Having said that, one thing I often hear people say after playing their first Souls game is, I don't like the story. Or sometimes, I didn't understand what the story was. And to that, I say, yeah, that checks out. When I played Dark Souls for the first time, the majority of my thoughts went to, did I really just fall off that ledge? Again? And why does Bed of Chaos still exist in my current reality? I didn't really pay much attention to the story at all, but it's actually really very good. And I don't even really mean the story itself, but the way it tells that story. I'm not going to do a Dark Souls story explained video here, but I do want to try my best to explain why I love the Dark Souls stories so much. I'll mostly stick to the world of Dark Souls 1 to make a clearer point, but do be warned that there will be heavy spoilers for every Dark Souls game out there. Although I won't be telling you the story itself, so it would help if you've played the games or heard the story somewhere else. So gather round the fire and let me tell you a tale.
Then from the dark they came and found the souls of lords within the flame. Nito, the first of the dead. The Witch of Izalith and her daughters of Chaos. Gwyn, the Lord of Sunlight, and his faithful knights. And the furtive pygmy, so easily forgotten.
Dark Souls 1 brands you as the chosen undead. You're to set off on a grand journey to link the first flame. Sacrifice your own body to keep the fire alive for just a little longer, until yet another chosen undead finds their way there and repeats the process. You get little direction. In fact, if it weren't for the lovely lad just up above who conveniently drops a key into your cell, you'd not be going anywhere. As it is, you make your way through this asylum for the undead and are eventually flown to Firelink Shrine. Once there, you're free to do whatever your heart desires. If you've elected to start out as a thief class character, even more so, because you'll be equipped with the Master Key. If you're a new player, then your best bet is to make your way to the Undead Burg. However, you could instead roll yourself down to this ghost part of town to pick up a very early Estoc, which is a fantastic early game weapon. Or better yet, pop out that Master Key and walk into the Valley of Drakes to grab the stuff in front of Boney McBigdragon, such as Astora's Straight Sword, which makes every enemy you encounter for a while an absolute joke. Or if you really hate yourself, you can go directly to Blighttown. And you can even accidentally visit Havel until you remember that Havel is there, so then you leave, so you can run into him again later on, remember once more that he's there, and leave again. Just going to clap Havel for an early ring? Just going to run away? That does also mean that at times you'll run into items you no longer need. Optional bosses because you have a Master Key and you have the ability to simply walk straight into Blighttown whenever you please. You can join a specific covenant to open a shortcut to Lost Izalith while skipping a lot of the in-between stuff. It can certainly get a little confusing. You can quite literally skip an entire zone this way, the Depths. No less than 9 out of 22 base game Dark Souls bosses are completely optional. As you make your way through the game, whichever path you choose, you'll spend the majority of your time trying to figure out how to defeat the various enemies on your path, at least until you figure out that most Dark Souls bosses have no real defense against the aggressive, ankle-biting technique. There isn't much time to look at anything but incoming attacks, and even less time for anyone to tell you much of a story. Except you've just been told some already, by the enemies you face, the characters you've met along the way, and the world you've traversed to get to them. Let's take a closer look at those. On first sight, Dark Souls has a dark high fantasy setting like many others. There are dragons, castles, magical swords, and demons. You'd be forgiven to look at the scenery and find it interesting, maybe even appealing, but not much else. Which would be a shame, because a lot of Dark Souls' story is told through the environment directly. In some cases, environmental details left behind in the first Dark Souls game even come back to play in Dark Souls 3. Take the room we fight Ornstein and Smo in, for example. Once you have a moment to look around, you can find 3 pedestals in the back of the room, 2 of which are occupied. In the middle, we see Gwyn, Lord of Cinder, or back then, the Lord of Sunlight. On the right, we see Guinevere, the great chest we find in the upstairs room, Gwyn's daughter, the Queen of Sunlight. And on the left, we see nothing at all. There was a statue there once, no doubt, but it's gone now. Why? What happened to that statue, and what did it depict? This type of environmental storytelling exists to make the player wonder, to seek answers. There is no note on the floor in front of the pedestal to tell us the story of this forgotten figure. The vision merely sticks an idea in your mind and lets it linger. This is a very obvious example of a very direct part of the story, but there are plenty of other strictly visual cues we can pick up to try and infer what might have happened. It would be easy to just call Blighttown the Poison Swamp level, Lost Izalith the Fire level, Anor Londo the Castle level, or the new Londo Ruins the Water level, but first of all, Dark Souls doesn't have underwater levels, thank God, and second of all, these zones are not entities all on their own. They are all connected. When you start to look around, really look around, instead of screaming and flailing your arms wildly as you exit Blighttown, you start to notice these connections. All of them in some shape or form leading to Gwyn and the decisions he made. Things don't look the way they do simply for their aesthetic. The Undead Asylum is there because Gwyn feared the undead and had them locked away. Ash Lake is a remnant from an age destroyed by Gwyn. The Duke's archives were created by Gwyn for Seath the Scaleless after he aided him in destroying the dragons. And you will not know these things from the onset, which is why a replay of Dark Souls is such a great revelation for most people. Now that you've met the characters, read item descriptions, seen the bosses, seen the other zones, now you know. You know so much more. That does mean that sometimes you'll run into environmental details that have no meaning, like the petrified blacksmiths. But the fun thing about that is that you can create your own story around them regardless. Even with the knowledge we can gather from the games, there are gaps. It's up to us to theorize. It's not surprising, given that Miyazaki himself once said that he would read books from the library that included passages that were beyond his understanding. So, to keep reading, he would use his imagination to fill in the blanks, using the illustrations provided. That way, he felt like he was co-writing the fiction. That's something Dark Souls does as well, to a point. And that's not for everyone, I understand. However, for me, piecing together bit by bit what's really going on from context clues, shreds of dialogue, that weird painting on the wall, or the placement of a particular enemy in the world is what makes Dark Souls so much more engaging. The world around you isn't just beautiful and terrible, it's trying to tell you something. Dark Souls 3 especially has the most incredible vistas, but the way Dark Souls 1 plays with the constant rays of the sun is very telling as well in terms of story. Ah, my phantom friend. This zone must be important. I think we'll find great treasure here. Oh yeah, I'll bet. It's Anor Londo after all. Yes, indeed. That's part of it. There's quite a lot of twilight and final rays of the sun going on. Definitely also plays into it. Yes. Okay, yeah. That's most of it, yeah. Are you just going to ignore the obvious signs? Alright, yes, there's also a lot of messages on the floor about an amazing chest ahead, but I'll be honest, ma'am, given the circumstances, I find them suspicious. For that same reason, music is used sparingly. Barely any zones in the game have music at all. When music does play, you know something important is happening for one reason or another. Boss fights, for example, always have music. Once they're dead, the void returns. Ambient sounds are so important otherwise that music would actually make the game more difficult to play. Hearing the footsteps of enemies, the jangling armor, and the moans of the undead is vital for your survival. So once you hear the music of Firelink Shrine, the only real safety in the Dark Souls world, that's a sign of true calm. There is calm music here because you don't need to pay attention. No one will attack you unless you attack first. It's the eye of the storm. The game tells you that without actively spelling it out. The clues are in the environment. You'll find that each time you hear music outside of a boss fight, it will be calm and there is no combat, save for Ash Lake. Ash Lake being the last vestige of the very final everlasting dragon. The music isn't quite calm, but rather reverent. There are enemies, but they are few, and you can avoid them entirely very easily. And the zone itself is rather hidden to begin with. This zone isn't quite right. The music shows that. Dark Souls has no voiceovers outside of the opening cinematic, no notes written by lost adventurers who just so happened to be there when the very important thing happened. No recorded voice logs, just the relics of its ruined world, left for you to make sense of. Take 15. Explaining why I'm currently dead. Oh God! They're coming! Excuse me. What? Who are you? I'm the player character. Oh, you're not really supposed to be here yet. Well, I picked the master key, so what are you doing? I'm leaving a voice log, so you'll know how I died. But you're not dead yet. Details. It'll come later. Don't worry, my corpse will be here eventually. Couldn't you just leave? And not die? Listen, we all have our roles to play. Why would you even make a note? Do you know how you're going to die? It's in the script, keep up. Do you not see how little sense this makes? How else would you follow the bloody story? By paying attention to my surroundings? Oh. Huh. Look, there's a pack of hollows right there. Practically on top of us. They're the ones that will kill me, actually. Yes, I assumed as much, given your location and the fact that you're wearing a ring of attract undead. Yes, I suppose that's rather asking for it, isn't it? You have pre-rendered bite marks on your body. Oh, so I do. Well, alright, if you're sure, I'll go ahead and die then. Let you figure things out. Thank you! God! Of course, the world doesn't quite stay the same as you play either. Your actions make an impact one way or another, either by your lack of them or your direct contact with the characters and monsters in it. For example, when you kill the Hydra in the Darkroot Basin, what the game doesn't tell you is that a golden golem appears in a cave nearby. When you kill that golden golem, a young lady from Ulasil pops out. Her name is Dusk. She's very thankful for your help, but as she tells us, she's from a different time entirely. She cannot stay in this realm. She's great at sorceries and offers to sell you some if you summon her spirit back to this realm later, before she power stances out of here. Eventually, through dialogue and the like, you will find out that she was present during the fall of Ulasil, but she believes she was saved by the knight Artorius and eventually became trapped in this golem. And after playing through the Artorius of the Abyss expansion, where you travel back in time to Ulasil, you realize the person who saved her was actually you. That's a lot of wibbly-wobbly, timey-wimey storytelling, and you'll need to pay very close attention to everything going on to even figure this out. But you do indeed hold the lives of many of the Dark Souls characters in your very hands, both if you do nothing or if you do. Dark Souls has a lot of wonderful characters, and they all immediately come across as very trustworthy indeed.
I need your souls.
This is no laughing matter, I tell you.
Or maybe not. You don't know. That's the point. Anyone could be your greatest ally or your worst enemy. During your first playthrough, you won't really have a clue. At least, not generally. If a character has less than savory intentions, they're obviously not going to tell you about it. And no, there won't be a note either. Not to mention that their stories are not that simple. You might think what they're doing is terribly terrible, but in their mind, they could be doing the world a favor. Knight Kirk, for example, is a character that can invade you as part of the Dark Wraith faction. This faction is specifically focused on invading other people and rewards a fist weapon that steals humanity. What a terrible thing, you might say. However, as we later find out, in reality, he was a Chaos Servant, which means the reason he secretly joined the Dark Wraith faction was to steal enough humanity to feed to a character called the Fair Lady, in order to ease her suffering. He no doubt felt the goal justified the means, and yes, you only realize this when you find his body near the Fair Lady. Other characters are just purely garbage, like Patches.
There's a fine stash of treasure right down that hole. I found it first, but, well, we're friends now, so I'll split it with you. In any case, have a look. It'll shimmer you blind. This is what I do, my friend. The trinkets I'll be stripping off your corpse, that's the real treasure.
However, Patches does become weirdly honest after betraying you. When you talk to him, he tells you how he feels about several other characters as well. Some of his claims are easy to check. Yes, Lautrec is completely mad and would indeed not think twice about cutting a person down. Solaire is an idiot, but a very strong idiot. But what's this about Petrus, then? Patches does not like clerics in general, but he's not been lying so far.
Hast thou acquaintance with Petrus of Thurmond? I wager you two has likely found much in common. For is he not too drenched in sin?
Petrus is a cleric you meet quite early in Firelink Shrine. He's sitting around waiting for his lady and the rest of the party to arrive. When you ask him about their mission, he tries to make you pay souls for the information, because his mission is just too holy to divulge otherwise, I suppose. Not that holy if extortion is part of the bargain. Eventually, his most eloquent party does in fact arrive.
You look awfully raggedy.
And they leave for the catacombs. Mysteriously, after some time, only Petrus returns. He seems flustered about his missing lady, but won't tell us anything else. However, if Lautrec is still around, you can let him extort you for the truth. Petrus knows full well that his lady is stuck in the catacombs. After all, he abandoned her there. Suddenly, Oswald of Karim's mention that Petrus is drenched in sin is starting to make a lot more sense. Petrus quite literally tells us that she is defenseless. We could do as we please with her. And when we rescue her, he's not at all pleased. If we leave things as they are at this point, Petrus will eventually kill the poor girl anyway. You won't know that during your first playthrough, but on your second playthrough, you'll think to yourself, well, I'll kill him first then. That'll solve things.
You damned... No. This can't be. It can't end like this.
You think you've done everything right, rescued her, made sure she wasn't murdered, she's free, she's safe. And then you make it to the Duke's archives. And there she is, in a cell, hollow. She couldn't escape her fate after all. If you're looking for happy endings, Dark Souls isn't it. You can influence their paths, but even still, this is Dark Souls, a dying ember of a world. Whatever you do, the ending will, no matter what, be bleak at best. Although perhaps you can at least stave off death for but a moment. One of Dark Souls' most beloved characters is Solaire, the sun worshipper. In most people's playthroughs, especially the first time, he will meet a terrible fate. Mind-controlled by a parasite. You're forced to kill him after meeting him like that, but you can save him. It's a little convoluted, of course. You have to join the Chaos Servant Covenant and grant the fair lady 30 pieces of humanity. This way, you can open a shortcut in Lost Izalith and kill the parasite that infects Solaire before he ever even gets there. He'll be alive. Except you'll meet him in that same hallway later down the line, alone, immovable. The parasite had made him believe he'd found his son. Now, at the end of his path, he's lost hope of ever finding his son. Which means that at this rate, he will hollow.
You really are fond of chatting with me, aren't you? If I didn't know better, I'd think you had feelings for me. Oh no, dear me, pretend you didn't hear that.
Praise the sun, my friend! Hey, praise it, buddy! You know, you look awfully familiar. I do? Oh, yeah. Yeah, I do, I guess. Where did you get that set? Well, I found it. You know, lying around. Lying around where? On your corpse? I beg your pardon? I'm sorry, man. This is an NG Plus playthrough and you died on my last run. NG what? I died? Yeah, you get mind controlled and I'm forced to kill you because you attacked me. I would never... Wait, can you prevent this terrible twist of fate? Oh, I can. Totally. I'm already working on it. It won't happen this time. Oh, thank goodness. And this time you'll lose all hope because you can't find your son, so you just mope around in the hallway all day. Oh, so you'll probably hollow sometime soon, but hey, I don't have to kill you. That's wonderful. We call that jolly cooperation. Ha ha! Praise the sun. Praise the sun. And yes, these characters become important to us, at least once you're invested in their story. We want to see Solaire succeed. We want to help him. The Dark Souls world is hostile, so anytime you meet someone who doesn't immediately attack you, but instead strikes up a conversation, or better yet, helps you, it feels like a breath of fresh air. It's why Priscilla from the Painted World of Ariamis is such an outlier and gives most people pause on their first playthrough, perhaps even after. She's a boss who does not attack you. She won't fight back unless you start combat. When you find more clues about the painting, you start to feel bad for her. Do we even want to kill her? She's done nothing wrong. Why are we doing this again? Why did we even come to this world?
This land is peaceful. Its inhabitants kind. Its inhabitants kind. Its inhabitants kind. Its inhabitants kind. Its inhabitants kind.
Are we the baddies?
And there are other times when a monstrous-looking creature turns out to be completely harmless. In that same painting, we find a monster that generally poisons you on sight, not just with poison, but toxic status, an extremely detrimental effect. After having seen several, of course you charge in immediately to get rid of it, only to realize it drops a spell. Only special monsters drop spells like that. Generally, only friendly NPCs drop things like this. Did I just kill a friendly NPC by accident? You didn't technically in this case, as it's just a neutral monster, but that makes you wonder too. Why was it neutral? Why didn't it want to attack us? If it had been a friendly NPC, then their death would have been permanent. There are no save points, no reloads. Friends are dead forever. NPCs also won't just sit around waiting for the story to start happening to them. They're a part of this world as much as you are. As long as they're free to move around, not in a cage, they will go wherever their heart takes them. Whether you've talked to them ever or not. That means you'll likely miss NPCs on your first playthrough. Just following the fastest route to the next boss means you don't generally find the most interesting characters. They have things to do, or deaths to meet, whichever. And once you do meet them, they'll have different reactions to you depending on your stats, what you've already done so far, who you've met. There's a whole host of branching paths there. For example, when you talk to Big Hat Logan with less than 15 intelligence, he won't teach you sorceries, stating that the basic framework can't be taught. Once you hit 15, he'll tell you, we've come a long way, and he can now teach us sorceries. I am Big Hat Logan. Pretty average-sized hat, actually. Silence! You are too stupid to learn magic. I am not at all surprised. You must kill a lot of creatures so you can sacrifice their soul energy to become smarter. Wait, how does that work? You'll understand once you're smart. Well, okay then.
A few moments later.
Hey, I'm 15 smart now. 15 is exactly enough. Here, weapons of mass destruction. Sweet! Characters are integral to the Dark Souls experience. You can never tell at first glance what their true intentions are. You'll have to find out for yourself, for better or for worse. Although they don't pose a direct danger just yet, they might in the future. Or it could be advantageous to attack them yourself, for one reason or another. Can you play the game without ever interacting with them? Technically yes, but it would suck. Not to mention, if you kill this man for his Uchigatana, you're set for life, and I don't see how you can pass that up.
You've gone mad. Why me? Little Yulia.
And speaking of items, I know, excellent segue, they tell a story in and of themselves. Remember when I told you about the statue at the start? There's an item in the game that tells you a little more.
Oi, where are you off to?
This is the Sunlight Medal. Its description reads, in part, the symbol represents Lord Gwyn's firstborn, who lost his deity status and was expunged from the annals. But the old god of war still watches closely over his warriors. Gwyn's firstborn, expunged from the annals, a statue of Gwyn with an empty pedestal at his right-hand side, traditionally the most important place at a king's table, the place of honor. That's the missing statue. In this case, it only opens the mystery, because why was he expunged at all? Well, in Dark Souls 3, we run into the Nameless King. When you defeat him, he drops his soul that reads, the Nameless King was once a dragon-slaying god of war, before he sacrificed everything to ally himself with the ancient dragons. That's him, right there. Gwyn's firstborn, the old god of war. When Gwyn went to war with the dragons, his son initially aided him, but for one reason or another, rebelled against him in the end and sided with the dragons. It is little wonder then that his father erased him so thoroughly from the annals of history that he is now known only as the Nameless King. And you can see similarities to Gwyn's traditions during the Nameless King's boss fight all the same. When his Stormdrake falls, the king absorbs his soul, as Ornstein and Smo are wont to do when one of them is defeated. To continue the battle stronger than ever, he uses lightning as his father did too, of course. Going even further, we can find the Soul of Dragon Slayer armor earlier in the game, foreshadowing the king's fall from grace. The Dragon Slayer armor is a sentient piece of armor, and its soul reads, the Dragon Slayer armor, controlled by the pilgrim butterfly, lost its master long ago, but still remembers their sporting hunts. And when you attempt to create weapons out of this soul, one reads, thickly imbued with the power of lightning, use skill to draw upon the techniques used to slay archdragons. And the shield offers high protection to lightning, which the Dragon Slayer commanded as his own, and its skill has faint echoes of the Dragon Slayer's own fighting style. This sentient armor very likely belonged to the king, discarded when he forsook his family to join the dragons in their war. And as if to confirm the king truly is who we think, we can buy his very own new armor after defeating him. The headpiece reads, This golden crown, buried amidst long strands of bristling ash, is said to closely resemble that of the First Lord. From start to finish, none of the Nameless King's story is told to us. Not by anyone. Unsurprising, as through reading the item descriptions we learn why that is. You're firstly going to need to read those descriptions through, and then piece things together yourself, bit by bit, with still plenty of room left for speculation. Why did he choose to side with the dragons? And I realize that this sort of storytelling really isn't for everyone. Some people loathe only getting half the story or having to dig through the world to actually find it all. They want a straightforward tale, told from beginning to end, with an ending you can truly call an ending. Instead of the Souls-like endings that really only become a beginning for your character. By telling a lot of the both more intricate and more direct parts of their story through item descriptions, you force the player to engage with all of the content. Tell me honestly, are there many games that you feel have worthwhile item descriptions to read? Final Fantasy XIV actually does much the same thing in a lot of cases. In my The Creepiest Stories in Final Fantasy XIV video, I mentioned several items that give us a vague idea of what happens surrounding one particular character and dungeon. But most of the time I ignore item descriptions completely, because there's nothing of interest there. This is a strong axe. Yes, I'm sure it is. It's very nice. I'm going to vendor it now. Of course, that doesn't mean that every Dark Souls item has a deep, meaningful description or use. The pendant, a starting item, was literally put in the game as a joke by the director, and players spent years trying to figure out what it did. But you get the point. Dark Souls is a great, sprawling world with more stories than you can probably follow during a single playthrough. That's exactly why New Game Plus exists, to get to the ones you didn't find. On your first adventure, you'll likely do Gwyn's bidding entirely. Yes, you should ring the bells of awakening. We should go to Anor Londo. There's a beautiful lady telling us that we're very important, and we're doing everything right, so yes, we are going to continue doing that. And then we link the first flame once more, sacrificing ourselves, and that's that. The game is over. I don't know about this.
No, really. This is fine. You're a hero.
Won't this kill me?
Yes, but it's for the greater good.
It'll fix everything?
Yes. For a little while, and then we do it again.
Excuse me?
Nothing. Throw your body into the fire.
You know, now that I think about it,
don't think about it.
The big boobied lady in Anor Londo was a little too convenient.
Why are you thinking about it?
It's like they knew I'd do whatever she says, because she's hot.
Embrace boobies, reject thought.
And if you don't mind me saying, there's an awful lot of chosen undead around. I really don't feel that special.
Why would you say that, my special pumpkin pie?
More like kindling, actually.
Kath, stop talking to my chosen undead!
You've missed so much on your first playthrough, like the other ending. On your second playthrough, you go back to the beautiful lady, and you still really want to do what she says because she's a beautiful lady, but also, if you punch her in the face, you realize that she's an illusion. This whole time, everything here was an illusion, and now you can fight her stupid little brother who tried to trick you with the beautiful lady. You might not even link the first flame this time. You're going to walk straight out that door and become the Dark Lord you were always meant to be. And also, because Framt is really stingy with his souls when you feed him arguably very good items, but for some reason dung pie is a delicacy. At that point, you've only really done the main story, or at least seen the main story. So much of Dark Souls takes place in the footnotes of the book. You can do exactly what you need to be doing, and you wouldn't see most of the game. Normally, I really would say that's awful. Dark Souls, if you're not very skilled at the game, can be quite long and sometimes frustrating. But when you play through the game a second time, you'll find things go a lot smoother. You know the enemies, your build, the pitfalls. At this point, you might feel a lot bolder, more sure that you'd like to explore everything this game has to offer. It's why I don't mind that to get to the beautiful painted world, you first have to do a weird little jump on top of the ruins in Firelink Shrine so you can walk into a giant's bird nest, where you curl up like a ball for about 10 solid seconds until something finally happens, and you get whisked away to the undead asylum, which, oh my god, you remember that? And there's another boss now, which is actually the same boss, but that's the thing you heard stomping around the first time. And there's a weird little doll on a dead guy in your cell, which makes you wonder who this dead guy even was. And speaking of dead guys, the guy that helped you at the start is hollow now. How sad! And then you take the weird little doll you found and you go to Anorlondo, and in the big hall with a big painting, you touch the big painting and it sucks you straight into a funky little cutscene. All of this side content has thought put into it, effort put into it. It's only side stuff in the most mundane of meanings. It's very much part of the core game. It just banks on you wanting to explore. So many games these days have exploration, but it sucks. I'm so sorry to say, it really largely does. You can go around the world finding 9,099 feather pompons, and once you've done that, you get a fuzzy little hat. Yay. Other times there are areas that just have nothing in them, and they will never have anything in them. The creators just made a giant fuck-off map for no bloody reason, except that everyone says we have to be open world now. Dark Souls is an open world, but that open world lives and breathes. Not to mention, it's genuinely open. It's dangerous and depressing, absolutely, but it oozes atmosphere and story and thoughtful love of detail. From the decor to the enemies, the items and the NPCs, dragging Bloodborne into the story for just a moment, even the music tells you more of the story. Ludwig's blade sings to its master, lamenting his mutation and wishing for his death to release him from this torment. Everyone and everything has a place. Everything has a story, and making the connections is so deeply fulfilling to me, personally. Finding out this guy betrayed the other guy and then killed the girl, Patches being a total dickbag, all of that. It makes suffering through bed of chaos worth it. Mostly. And when you're lost and out of ideas on where to go, you can always find an NPC that will give you a clue. Of course, there's a chance you missed it, but that's Dark Souls. It rewards those who pay attention. And yes, getting good at the game is a part of the story in and of itself. As you play the game, you find yourself getting more skilled as you practice and start to notice certain patterns. You level up your stats, of course, or find new armor, and that's all fine and good, but you quickly realize that armor is mostly there to make you look good, and all the stats in the world are not going to help you if you're not also actively paying attention to the enemies you face. Havel could be an insurmountable obstacle for new players until they get the hang of backstabbing, and at that point, Havel becomes nothing more but a stepping stone, until you eventually learn to parry before Sen's Fortress so you can hate it slightly less, and suddenly you find yourself in Anorlondo, parrying the Silver Knight on the ramparts and thinking to yourself, wow, learning to parry was a very good idea actually. Those moments of overcoming the darkness, no pun intended, that permeates this world are what drives the player forward. Wherever you go, you'll find an NPC that might not think you stand a chance at all, starting in Firelink Shrine with the downtrodden lad who has given up himself and is projecting all of his insecurities on you, much like angry trolls in most comment sections, all the way to Sen's Fortress, where they're not even subtle about it.
Go along, try and make something of yourself. But nothing will come of it, and I should know.
Hey. Remember when you told me I wasn't going to amount to anything? I remember. You want to give that another go, pal? The game and its characters challenge you to overcome this world, learn all its mysteries, and emerge victorious. It's certainly frustrating that some quests are easy to miss. I understand that completely. There's no real way for you to know Siegmeyer's questline secrets without asking or accidentally doing it, because like I said, once an NPC is dead, they're dead for the duration of that playthrough. And some NPCs do die fast. You wouldn't know that the constantly invading Knight Kirk is secretly working to achieve a nobler goal unless you make sure to be in human form in certain locations at the right time. Hell, some characters you can't even see unless you hold specific items. But that is exactly the point of New Game Plus. To learn more, to try new things, to dig even deeper. When you go back in, you wonder why you hated Blighttown so much. It wasn't even that bad. And Lost Izalith and Bed of Chaos were right there. But it's because you've grown now. You came back with knowledge. And also it's NG+. And you've decided to live the dream of fast roll Havel. This was a pointless endeavor. I don't even use the armor. I'm an iframe player. The whole point of fast rolling is not to get hit. And even if it wasn't, armor barely does anything in Souls games. All my other stats are garbage. It takes forever to kill anything. I have no health, so Estus flasks are full heals. I just wanted to do it because I can. You can't stop me. I'm fast roll Havel. And I do think Miyazaki's design philosophy drives a lot of what makes the games so memorable. In an IGN interview, he said, "Personally, a world that is happy and bright is something that just doesn't feel realistic to me. It may sound like I have a trauma or something, but I believe that the world is generally a wasteland that is not kind to us. That's just the way I see it." Which might sound awful, but he follows it up with, "Light looks more beautiful in the darkness. When there is something beautiful in the middle of a wasteland, we are able to appreciate it more. One jewel doesn't look like much when you have a pile of them. But if you find one jewel in the midst of mud, it is worth so much more." And that idea links everything together in Dark Souls. That bonfire after a hard battle, the friendly NPC to give you a word of encouragement in an otherwise hostile environment, just the sun breaking through behind a vicious dragon. Dark Souls is a world that would continue to turn even if I wasn't there. If I wasn't the chosen undead, there would be another undead, and their lives would continue changing as they do. I don't have to be there to kickstart the story. The story is happening no matter what I do, and if I'd like to, I can be a part of it. And that's what so many games have a hard time capturing, truly. To build a world that breathes on its own, and the essence of being a main character without being the only main character. Dark Souls makes me feel like I'm stepping into an established story, instead of making me create one myself, centered around me. I can be important if I choose to, but in the end, given what we learn about the secrets of Gwyn, I could just link the fire and be another cog in his illusionary machine. And that is why I love how Dark Souls tells its story. So let me take a moment to thank the From Software team for their wonderful creation, and if you enjoyed this video, do be sure to mention dystopia in the comments. Also please, play Bloodborne if you haven't yet. I am simply begging you, even if it's just for the soundtrack. Thank you very much for watching, and until another tale finds us. I would like to sincerely thank Wolguy the Robin, Robertson, Septic, Ray Ray, Mike Sveers, Adrian Peckle, and MJS Skulsta for supporting me on the oh-so-generous Ko-fi and Patreon. You're the best. Don't you want to do a fun little skit? Using their names? As you usually do? Mm-hmm. Are you just making people listen to Ludwig, the Holy Blade? Shut up. Okay then. It is very good. I said shut up. Okay, well, there's a Bloodborne monstrosity rolling this way, and it looks like it's named Walrub Sepre Mycater Yulsta. So good luck with that.
Very good music.
Hey! Code? Who are you looking for? Oh, new patron. Somewhere here. Oh. What's their name? Codename Black. He didn't come in with the monstrosity just earlier, which means, he's still here somewhere. Oh, well, that's not usually good. Oh, God.